Get ready for the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in. It is another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. About an hour after we were originally supposed to do this thing. Yes, but we are here with you on a Friday afternoon, 4:30 Mountain Time. Brandon Baney, let's bring in our Magic Valley expert. It is Scott Burton. What's up, Scotty?
Expert, boy, use that term very loosely because we just spent the last hour trying to figure out an audio issue. And I'm not a techologist by any stretch of the imagination. And but you know what? We got it done. Took us a while, but we got it figured out. I'm the guy that something goes wrong and I can't figure it out. I throw everything away and I just start over. And I was halfway out the door to buy a new laptop. So I'm glad we got it fixed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You had the Geek Squad on standby ready to assist you. And we couldn't figure it out. We literally just spent an hour, just so people know. It's not like we were, off gallivanting. We just spent the last hour trying to figure out. We could see Scott. We could see his lips moving, but we couldn't hear anything that Scott was saying. And he had some sort of microphone issue.
Yeah. Leslie kind of prefers it that way.
Secretly, I think our audience prefers it that way too. So no, I'm just kidding.
Probably right. Probably right. I've been told that many times.
Well, I didn't think we could top last week's show where I was broadcasting from Sandpoint and the guy that was in the booth with me kept walking back and forth, and every once in a while would pop into the camera shot. But here we are. At least we are up and running in our respective home offices. You, of course, are in the Magic Valley. Scott, you can listen to this on IdahoSports.com and wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. You can also watch it if you're watching live now on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. And a lot of the stories that I saw this week, Scott, I did see on social media, but wanted to bring it around full circle and talk about some really incredible things that were happening on the basketball courts in the Magic Valley, starting with a guy who we've probably talked about no less than 20 times on this show over his acclaimed high school career, Kai Kendall from Hagerman, continuing to just check more boxes off the career checklist, as it were, Scott. He, this past week, crossed over the 1,000 point mark for his high school career at Hagerman High School.
Yeah. Boy, it wasn't an accomplishment, but to do it in just 3 years, because he spent his freshman year at Wendell High School before he moved to Hagerman. And in those 3 years, he was able to eclipse the 1,000 point mark. And, this is a kid that he's a natural scorer. I mean, he does it on the football field. He does it on the basketball court. I mean, it's like, I don't know, the year of the Pirate in a way, because it seems like we are following Maven Camp and Kendall and that whole crew for the past couple of years. And Kendall in his senior year, well, a little fun fact too, not only did he eclipse 1,000 yards, he holds the school record for most threes in a single game, and which is 9. And he broke that this year. But he also held it with 8. So he's breaking his own records. But yeah, what an outstanding career across the board in all sports this kid has had, for sure.
Yeah, it's so funny, Scott, because on last week's show, we were talking about this very thing. And I had mentioned that Kai Kendall was getting close to 1,000 career points. And then I said, by the way, Kai Kendall has the school record for most threes in a single game. I think he hit like 6 last year in a game. And then somebody in the chat from Hagerman corrected me and said, no, it was 8 that he set with the new school record. And I was like, oh, yeah, sorry, I don't want to shortchange Kai Kendall any. And then not only that, he comes out this next week. Not only does he cross 1,000 points, but he goes, 8 was nice, but I'll make sure Brandon Baney really remembers. The new record is 9. He comes out and hits 9 threes a couple of nights ago, Scott. It's just incredible.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's in that game against Shoshone. He finished with 34 points and 10 steals. I mean, he was a beast. And, yeah, I mean, the kid is a shooter, but he's also one of those guys that puts the time in to get better. You talk to the people that know him, especially his coaching staff and Katie Knight in particular, he puts the work in to get better. And he focuses in not just on, his own personal game, but his leadership roles as well. This past summer he went to a camp and he got to play with guys from all over the country, and he stood out. Teammates from all kinds of different backgrounds, and he got them to be better. And that was one of the things that people noticed about him, is that, you get these types of scorers sometimes and you turn into an Allen Iverson, right? Where you take 60 shots a game. Okay, fine. You score 35 points, big deal, but you're shooting it 60 times and everybody else stands around and watches you. That's no fun. Kendall is kind of the opposite of that. If you ask the people that, coach him and watch him play, he gets everybody going and makes everybody better. And he makes it a point to distribute the basketball, and not be the guy that is the Allen Iverson, right? So it speaks to his character and his ability to be a good teammate as well.
Yeah, it's awesome to see what this Hagerman basketball program has done. Katie Knight in her second year as the Hagerman boys head coach. 3 years ago, Scott, Katie was a broadcaster for us on IdahoSports.com. She was part of the Magic Valley game night crew. And then I came back to her during the summer and I was like, hey, we'd love to have you come on board again. She's like, yeah, about that. I'm going to be coaching the boys basketball team at Hagerman. I was like, well, we're sad to lose you, but congratulations. And what she has done in a short amount of time there at Hagerman is pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And you don't see that dynamic very often. A female coach coaching a boys varsity basketball team. You just don't see that unless you're like watching Disney, and it's Goldie Hawn and she's coaching a football team or whatever. If you remember that one. But it's just a really good fit. You talk to the players, they respect her, they love her. They don't even look at it that way. But it's funny because you can only imagine some of the conversations that she has to listen to hanging around a bunch of teenage boys. And they went up to Lapway, and in a 15-passenger van with no cell phones. So all they got to do was just visit. And so that entire drive, she is listening to a group of boys interact with each other with no phones. And man, I can only imagine the stuff that she was privy to. But those are the moments that really kind of bond teams and coaches and everybody together. But, she told me that story and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty fun group of kids. Okay, so we've got video of the moment when Kai Kendall crossed that 1,000 point mark for his career. They stopped the game and did a quick ceremony and presentation. And so we will play that for you now.
With his 1,000.
So there you go, Scott. And so, yeah, you might be wondering, boy, that's a little much, them stopping the game in the middle of it. But you saw there, Coach Knight actually called the timeout. And so that Kai could be recognized by that home crowd. So I thought it was a cool moment. And I mean, how appropriate. It comes on a 3-point shot that he breaks. Oh, yeah. It crosses the 1,000 point mark. Yeah.
The only other thing that would have been cool is if he would have done it on a dunk, right? And taken off from the free throw line, a la Michael Jordan. Other than that, the 3 is the way to go. But, that shot he just hit, that was way downtown. And if you know anything about basketball, and that's mainly what I coached for almost 30 years, is you can just tell guys when they move if they've got some basketball skill or they're just an athlete. He's got both. And boy, it was a pretty shot, nothing but net. And this was one of the things that they knew was going to happen, obviously, because as soon as it did, you saw Coach Knight reach behind the thing, grab the prizes, and get ready for the presentation. But 1,000 points is a huge accolade to have. And if you were to factor in maybe what he had at Wendell his freshman year, I think he's pushing, I don't know, maybe 1,200 points somewhere in there. That was the best guess that we could get. And I think the record for Hagerman hovers right around 14. But still, 1,000 points is 1,000 points. And not many people ever get to say that.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. We have Coach Knight in the chat here, Scott, on Facebook. She says, yep, they are some hilarious guys. Grateful to be their coach. Certainly. Coach Knight, if you're still hanging out, I guess I would ask, Kai Kendall, I know, can elevate. Can he dunk it? Every highlight I ever see is him just shooting a three and nailing it. And I know he's got a good mid-range game and is a good slasher, but I'd be curious to know, Scott, you said the only way you could top it is if he, took it through the lane and dunked it. So
yeah, he's 6'1", so it's not like he's, 6'5", but he's not, 5'10" either. So a lot of 6'1" guys can put it down. A lot of 6'1" guys can maybe get to the bottom of the net too. So, but I think I'm going to bet Coach Knight comes back with he can flush it.
Yeah. Hey, how about this from the man himself, Kai Kendall on Twitter, Scott? No.
Oh, no. Kai, you're letting me down, man. I was going all in that you could flush, but that's okay. Just do what you do. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, no shaming here. Coach Knight says he tries but can't.
Oh, well, you know what? Then I guess what a good thing is, if he really thought that maybe I'm going to get my 1,000 and I'm going to do it on a dunk, I'm going to elevate, the adrenaline's going, and he goes up and he gets rim checked and then goes on his back, right? That could have been terrible.
Yeah. Coach Knight adds, can't quite dunk a b-ball, but probably a tennis ball. So, okay, he's an incredible athlete. Bottom line. Right. So
we'll give you that. Okay, we'll give you a pass on that one, Kai. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
And congratulations, since you're tuning in live with us. Congratulations on a cool feat. It's been a lot of fun. I know senior year winding down. It's been a lot of fun following you the last couple of years in football and now in basketball, and all the great things that you did at Hagerman. Not many kids have that kind of influence on a community and get to experience and have that kind of success. So congratulations to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that he and his Hagerman teammates can find a way to advance to state. We know Valley is kind of the predominant team in the conference right now. We know what kind of team they have, but there is a second spot available. And it could be Hagerman, could be Oakley. There's a lot of good teams that are competing for that other spot. And so I'm excited to see how this thing progresses for sure. So,
yep, for sure.
And here's the last word from Kai. Thank you guys. Appreciate the coverage of high school sports. Well, when we're covering guys like you, Kai, it makes it a lot more fun. So that is for sure.
Yeah. And we get like the inside track to all of the photos ever taken at Hagerman sporting events. So we get to see all of that. So people at Hagerman have been very, very kind to us. And so we'd like to return the favor when we can.
Yes. And that's something I wanted to give a shout out to as well. Coach Knight and like in football, Coach Hicks, and they were very excellent about always sending us lots of information about their teams. Not every school does that. Some schools, it's like pulling teeth trying to get any information. It's like, hey, we're trying to talk about your kids and your players in a positive light. And they're like, nope, those are, you're asking for the nuke codes. We can't give you that. Yeah. So it's refreshing that Hagerman's got this culture where they're like, we can't talk about our players and our teams enough. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they progress. And it's very appreciative of everything Hagerman does to promote their kids also.
Yep. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yep. Okay. Last thing here, and then we'll move on. Coach Knight says we get 2.5 bids to state, hoping to be top 2. So you avoid that play-in game for sure. So with 2.5, definitely a good shot to get there for the Hagerman Pirates. No doubt about it. So,
yep, absolutely. We're kind of pulling for you. So we'll see how that shakes up here in a few weeks. Cause they've got about 2/3 of the way done with the boys' schedule.
Yeah.
Girls are starting to wrap it up over the next week. So we're getting down to it.
Getting down to the nitty gritty for sure. Well, last week on IdahoSports.com, Scott, we had a number 1 versus number 2 showdown in 3A boys basketball. It was on Magic Valley game night on IdahoSports.com. It was number 2 West Side at number 1 Declo. And not only was it a number 1 versus number 2 matchup, but Scott, both those teams are in the same conference now. So it was a pivotal conference battle for first place. And Declo holds serve at home. As we are recording this, Scott, the Hornets still have not lost a game this season. They have been the number 1 team in the media poll, the coaches poll, no matter how you slice it up, for several weeks now, almost several months now. And so 14-0, Declo sits 5-0 in conference play. And to date, their biggest win of the season came against West Side at home by a final score of 48-31. So they kind of ran away from the Pirates a little bit in this number 1 versus number 2 showdown as well.
Yeah, they certainly did. I mean, this is quite a season for head coach Jacoby Fox and, the Declo Hornets. 14-0, number 1. And that game with West Side was one of those games that Coach Fox told me that, he's never coached a group as focused and determined as those kids were that particular night against West Side, which kind of shows the score differential, if you will, because 1 and 2 generally doesn't go that way. It's going to be a really good run for these Declo boys because, Coach Fox has been around for a little while. He's kind of been at a few different schools. And one of the things that, he's always taught and preached or whatever has been, disciplined defense, right? You look at any team that is successful, you got to play defense, you got to rebound. That's it. I mean, every once in a while, you're going to get a couple of Kai Kendalls that roll around and dump 1,000 on you, but those don't come around very often. So if you want to be successful year in and year out, you've got to play defense and you've got to rebound. Well, that's what Declo has done, but this year's a little different because all of a sudden they have got the ability to score. And that is what is making Declo different this year. They're going to get after you, and in the years past, they're always going to get after you, but can they score enough to beat you? That had always been the issue. This year, they can put up 50 plus a night and get after you defensively. So that's why Declo is sitting number 1 and undefeated.
Yeah, and coming into the season, there was admittedly not a ton of hype around Declo. Our preseason coaches poll pretty famously had West Side and Wendell tied atop the coaches poll, and then Declo was picked to finish 3rd. Instead, it's kind of in the opposite where it's Declo and Wendell jockeying for top position, or Declo and West Side jockeying for top position. Wendell still trying to figure things out a little bit, Scott. They're 0-2 to begin conference play there, but it is a lot of the same names and athletes we saw from Declo's run to the state championship game in football this past year. The main guy that really facilitates them is 6'4" senior guard Emmett Gibby, though. He was an all-conference player last year. Is kind of the straw that stirs the drink, but then, it's names like Gerard and Rasmussen and Snedeker and all of these names that we recognize from football. Even Dodge Edgar, who was a 6'6" 2A lineman. He's on the basketball team for Declo. So this is a fun group of athletes.
They've got a bunch of them too. I mean, you look at these guys where you've got, Gerard and Gibby are the captains. Joey's kind of the energy guy, the leader of that defense. And they've all got these roles to play. And he does that very well alongside, Gavin Rasmussen, who you mentioned. But, they are constantly giving maximum effort, maximum energy. And that was one thing that, a coach that I remember a long time ago, that was the mantra: maximum effort, maximum energy. And it's kind of what these guys are doing. And they pride themselves in picking up floor burns and hitting the deck and doing all these things. And then, you talk about the ability to score now, because they're going to get after you defensively. They're going to dive on the floor. They're going to get bruised up. They're going to get banged up. But can they score? Well, they do. And you talked about, Gibby, who's pretty much averaging a double-double with points and rebounds a game. I think he's about a half a rebound off or a half a point off from a true double-double average. So, I mean, that's how consistent he is. And Carter Robertson shooting 45% from the field. And these are guys that are unselfish, as well. I mean, I understand coaches that take a lot of stats. I was kind of the same way, for however purpose they use. I don't know, but Coach Fox does that. And this is a team where they have about 80% or more of their made field goals being created off an assist. So if you think about that, that shows how unselfish, this team is playing right now. And the fact that they're averaging 15 plus offensive rebounds a game. That there's the maximum effort, maximum energy. So I'm pretty excited to see how high this Declo boys basketball team can go.
Yeah, on the roster, Scott, I mean, they've got, just looking quickly, like 7 or 8 guys that are 6 feet or taller. So you mentioned finally a little height. And so the culture that Coach Jacoby Fox has instilled here at Declo, I know it's you mentioned defensively and rebounding, two things they like to hang their hat on, but it's a certain style of play that they feel gives them a certain edge every single game. They've got a big award board that they hang up in the gym. The acronym is BRASS, BRASS.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that stands for?
I do. B is for burns. Each guy earns a black star for getting on the floor and getting floor burns for loose balls, not just like diving on the floor for no reason. I mean, you gotta get after a ball, but and they have to have at least 3 in a game to get a sticker. So they're charting these things. So that's the B, that's for burns. And then the R is for rebounds. 3 of them, you get a sticker. Okay. So you have to do it more than once in a game. A is for assists. You have to get 2 of those in a game to get a sticker under the Declo Hornet rules here. The first S is for steals. You have to get 2 to earn a sticker. They also track deflections as well. So that's the quickness of the hands. If you get a deflection that might lead to a steal, you got to get 3 deflections to earn a sticker there. And then the final S is for sixth man. And you can only do this when you're as deep as Declo is this year. And that is, guys that come off the bench and have the most impact on the game. They get a silver star, and they give gold stars to the offensive and defensive players of the game. And, they give orange stars for film study, So when a player goes on huddle and watches film, I mean, coaches can track that, but then they have to give back their notes. What did they see? What are areas that they can take advantage of? They get orange stars when they do stuff like that. But the most coveted thing that they do with this brass is the chain and the shell casings. And they are earned for taking charges. And, the first one you get the chain. But then after that, you get a casing that you can hang on the chain for every charge that you take. And I thought that was pretty cool. We used to all have sticker boards when I coached, but it's becoming a lot more about the bling and the decorations, and the accessories, if you will. But it's a really cool thing, and it's exactly what you just said. It really does speak to the culture that's going on there. And if you got positive culture, you're going to get positive results, and that is what they're doing. In fact, they all wear a little wristband that's got positive energy matters on the outside, and then on the inside it says, "What did you bring?" So, I mean, you talk about a culture going on. That is what you've got to have if you want to be successful.
As you were sharing the story about the chains and the shell casings, I thought back to another team that kind of emerged as a real force this fall, Buell's football team. And they had that baseball bat where every time they got a win, they'd put another notch in the bat, and it was a kind of a point of pride. And so I love this from coaches. I love how you can get creative and make it fun for the athletes and make it fun for the kids too. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that, coaches, at least veteran coaches, understand is if you want to be successful, you have got to have a culture. And culture change is so hard when it's negative. You know, you come into a place, and I've seen it, it's so hard to do, you know, but if you can get hold of something positive, you don't let it go, because that is going to drive your program. And so I love to see these things and hear about these things too. And it reminds me of something we talked about a long time ago, and I still want to do this. I just haven't gotten around to doing it, is doing a show on superstitions that teams have. Remember we talked about that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, little things that they do or don't do. That's part of culture, you know? And so maybe a little bit down the road, and I get a little bit more time, I want to do a little deep dive on that, because those things are fun.
Yeah, there was some interesting stories I learned about Shelly when they won the girls basketball championship. They had fortune cookies they would smash, and a lucky orange peel, and all sorts of fun stuff. So it's kind of how we got on the conversation. But here is a look at the brass board that hangs up there in the Declo gym. Each player's got his own little piece of paper there, chart, whatever you want to call it, and some are more full than others. I mean, the one that's right closest to us, Scott, seems to be the most full. That's Robertson's. Maybe a little further down, he's got some stiff competition, but this is how they chart it. So,
and it's pretty cool, you know. And anytime you want to drive behavior, you've got to have measurable goals. You've got to have them reachable, and that just drives positive behavior. You know, I mean, it's conditioning 101, it's motivation 101. And those things are so cool that, you know, you see stuff like that. It reminds me of like the Ohio State Buckeyes and their helmet, and they have the Buckeye leaf on there for all the great things that they do. And all you do is you try to earn them. You try to get them. So it's a really cool thing.
You know, something else I just noticed looking at it, it looks like some of those boards have player nicknames on there, which is kind of funny too. Like number one is Dane Gerard, but it says Uncle Dane on it. And then,
really?
Yeah. And then like, if you make your screen full size, Scott, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Number two for Declo, the third one, that's Landon Silcock, but his thing just says Slick Jr. And then
it does.
Yeah, you go to like number three, that's Joey Gerard, and it just says Big Joe. So I like that. Incorporate the nicknames a little bit too.
Oh, absolutely. Very cool. Again, another aspect of culture.
Yeah. So Declo still undefeated, 14-0, Scott. They've got, of course, the rematch with West Side. That is going to be next Thursday, January 30th. Before that, they're in Malad tonight, actually, Friday the 24th. They're going to host Buell on Monday night, and then comes the big rematch with West Side. And so we'll see if they can keep it up. But so far, so good for Declo. 14 wins and counting this season. Keep it up.
Yep. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
Yep. Okay. Well, we went from some good news about Declo. Now we're going to go to some less than ideal news for Declo when it comes to girls basketball. This is fantastic news for Wendell. Wendell finds themselves, Scott. Yeah, they're 3-4 in their conference, but overall 11-5, best start they've had in years, Scott. And 2 of those 11 victories so far this year have come against their arch nemesis, Declo. They picked up a 41-33 win in Declo before the new year. And then last Monday, they win a nail biter by 2, 41-39. You add it all up, and it was the first time that Wendell has swept Declo in a girls basketball season since 2013-14. What a tremendous job by Coach Tia Stanley and these Wendell girls.
Yeah, you know, this is another example of culture change too, because you got to start someplace. And, you know, last year, Wendell went 3-17, and easy to kind of get down on yourself, the program, whatever, but she had a group of girls that were young, you know, and no one was dwelling on that. You know, last year they struggled with kind of the mental toughness side of things, just to kind of have some resiliency to kind of push through, you know, tough times everybody has in the season. But again, they were young, and in the off season, they put in the work, because that was one of their focuses this year, is to make sure that they put in the work to get tough mentally. And they started to see a little bit of turnaround when they started to have some success over the summer, and again, it's just that little bit of success that keeps you going. And Tia, I've known Coach Stanley for ever, it seems. And, and she's always positive. She kind of exudes that positivity of pushing forward, and no wonder her team's following her, but they're believing a little bit more now, and they play some really, really good defense. And, when it came to this Declo thing, everybody knows it's been, about 35 years since they've swept Declo. but here's the thing about that is you get in your head, if you're Wendell, you get it in your head, we can't beat Declo. And all of a sudden you see somebody lined up across from you and it says Declo. You're done, because up here you're already beat. And you see this so many times with teams that just crumble because of what's across the jersey of the opposing team. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And this is what they were fighting, is they had to get through it. And that first game that they played, their whole mantra there was, hey, this is just another game. It's another day. Just play it normally. But that didn't get them right here. And it took them about a quarter to get their head screwed on straight and start playing it the way that they're supposed to play. And they got it together, and they started pushing the ball, playing defense, and Declo kind of faded on them a little bit. So they got it that way, but they had to get over this, and you see so many teams struggle there.
Yeah. So it's been a really nice season for Wendell. The one downside is they happen to play in the same conference as the number one team in the state right now, Malad, who is 18-1, just an absolute juggernaut. But the second spot to state from this conference is wide open. Now, Soda Springs looks like the next best team, but I think Wendell could certainly compete for that second spot as well. They are done with Soda Springs this year, Scott. They lost the first matchup by only 9, 43-32. And I guess they still have one more matchup with Soda on the docket. So, I mean, Wendell's right there. I mean, in terms of advancing to state and playing well at districts. So,
yeah, they are. They're in the thick of things. I mean, you've got those three teams that, overall are having really solid years. I mean, Malad, wow. But Wendell's been a really nice surprise. Soda playing very well in the conference, and that's really kind of all that matters right now. Everybody else, including West Side, they're hanging in there. And so it's going to be Malad, and then who is going to fight for that second spot? And why not Wendell? I guess we'll see. They've got some really good players. They led by their point guard, who's a junior, Callie Nieves, and she is just one of the little spark plugs with tons of energy and leadership. And then you've got, and again, this is still a little bit of a younger team. Audra Bunn, a junior post. She is like the team's offensive scorer. She's kind of big shot Audra, if you will. But she was one that didn't play the second time that they played Declo. She was out with pneumonia. And so they really had to come together as a group without Audra in the lineup on that second time that they played Declo, and they were able to get the 2-point win that came down to the wire. But Olmos, senior, Angie Scott, their sixth man, who's a sophomore. I mean, they still got some youth, and they're still growing. But they are really focused in on being tough mentally, and I can't say that enough about what that is for a team.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. And then one extra little wrinkle here for Wendell, Scott. Last week was officials appreciation week across our great nation. Some would say it's great again. And so, yes, officials appreciation week this past week. Wendell got their officials some crumble cookies, Scott. I saw this on social media.
Yeah.
Thank you, officials. Without you, we'd crumble. I love it.
Very nice. Very nice. That is, that's get them all kind of sugared up before they go out there and run up and down the floor. But I mean, it has been. It's been fun. Before every game at Jerome, we read some stupid thing that I wrote that has kind of a little bit of humor to it. You know, calling those people in the stands jackwagons who can see everything, know everything from their seat, apply to be an official, type deal. I mean, you're seeing a lot more of that. And we do that too at Jerome. And it's, I think the officials appreciate it just because they know that the teams appreciate them, the schools appreciate them, maybe not all the fans at times, but anytime you can show an official some love, do it. And that is not an easy job. And granted, they're going to make bad calls. I mean, they're people. And some of them are doing JV for a reason. Some of them are doing freshmen for a reason because that's all the ability they have. But they're there and they're trying to help. So good for them for recognizing. Okay. Good job, Wendell.
So my next question, Scott, is you are the athletic director at Jerome. What did you guys do for Officials Appreciation Week?
Well, we've got like this officials room set up, and normally, I mean, it's coolers of water in there. So we put in some extra stuff. If they knew the secret handshake, they could get the good stuff. And, but we just make sure that, they are recognized in public. We make them a purposeful attempt to give them everything that they want, whether it's water, snacks, whatever. Tell them at every turn, hey, we appreciate you. Recognize them publicly on the PA, and just you want officials to come to your place knowing, I'm going to have a good experience here, and it's going to be all right, because there are places that I know they don't want to walk into because they know exactly how the night's going to go. And we try not to do that at Jerome if we can help it, so thank you, officials.
The answer we were looking for was, well, at Jerome High School, every night is Officials Appreciation Night. So we just treated it like any other night. That's why
I was a little bit of word salad there. That's why I was acting like Kamama Malala, because I didn't have a specific answer. It was like every night it is, because every game that we do, we read that officials announcement before every single game.
Yeah. And of course, one of your colleagues, Burley Athletic Director Randy Wynn, is the head of officials. And for basketball, we had him on during an off-season Prepcast this summer. If you want to go back and listen to that, it was a really fun conversation about basketball officiating. I'm pretty sure I saw Randy over the holidays up here at North Idaho College. He was repping some JUCO men's games. They had a little holiday tournament. I'm pretty sure I saw him. I was there broadcasting it. So yeah, I didn't have a chance to yell at him, but
yeah, you should have.
I know.
Yeah, good dude. He does a good job down here as the basketball commissioner in the 4th District. So we appreciate all his work, and then all the officials that are working for him as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. That is another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com. Scott, I'm glad you worked through your technical problems, because
now if I could just work through all my other problems, I'd be all right.
Yeah, it has been a fun week of activities. Everybody enjoy yourselves this evening or this weekend. If you're going somewhere to take in some action, travel safely. And we will be back here next Friday for another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.